Welcome to the Make Life Your Bitch podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Alysia. Greatness is a decision and your birthright. You deserve to love the woman looking back at you in the mirror. This show is for the purpose-driven female entrepreneur who is committed to only counting the time she gets back up. The woman who is ready to ignite the flame within, find her voice, and use the power of her story to transform the lives of those around her. This is your weekly fuel to inspire you to action, where I'll be sharing inspirational stories, real talks with thought leaders and successful entrepreneurs from around the world, and provide you with actionable success strategies for creating a business you love. I'm a content marketing coach, and I'm committed to helping you as an online creator and entrepreneur wherever you are to turn your dreams into a reality, to help you transform your messaging so you can create a genuine connection with your audience and grow your income online. You are far more powerful and stronger than you will ever imagine. We are the warriors. You were born for this. Let's make life your bitch. Welcome to the Make Life Your Bitch podcast. I am your host, Brittany Alysia, and I'm super excited today because I have Candice Provenzano here with me. She is a massage therapist who has opened her own spa. She has 13 women who work with her, which is very exciting. And she is also the author of her upcoming book called Daddy's Girl. And I'm just really excited to have you here to share your story with us and to help all the women listening. It doesn't matter where you are, that you can, or what you've been through, that you can go after your dreams as well. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having
me. One of the things that I would love for you to do is, where does it feel aligned for you? Where does your story begin?
Well, I had to figure that out at Tony Robbins in 2019 because I was hell-bent on talking about my story in a 10-year little space because I went through a pretty rough marriage and divorce, and abuse and all that, goes with. And I was really hell-bent on talking about that 10 years of my life until I went there to Tony Robbins and realized that I was obnoxious and I was arrogant to think that I really only had 10 years of life that was there, that my life started 47 years ago. At the time, it was 45 years ago. So I started, from nothing. And I had a lot of trouble learning that I was a somebody, that I was something. And then going through my marriage and my divorce made it worse. And I started my growth process after that. And I've been divorced, by the way, 13 years. My daughter will be 14, so 13 years. And I was always missing a little puzzle piece. I could only get so far. I would, I would make it. I would get back to work. I'd go through therapy, and I could just never quite get that final puzzle piece until Tony Robbins, which was November of 2019. And my ticket was given to me, and I went, and I came out a completely different human being. I walked on fire. I let go of anger, hurt, and despair from my ex-husband. I forgave him, which is something I never thought I would do. And I got out of my own way. It's very important for me to make people understand that sometimes we are the one we're in our own way. We hold on to things. And when we do that, we get stuck. And we want to blame it on the people that are doing us wrong. But in reality, they've done us wrong and they're no longer doing us wrong. We just hold it, and we hold it really tight for security. I'm not really sure why, but once you let that go and you start living and you realize that you are somebody, you have a purpose, you are loved by yourself, most importantly, because I don't think I ever really did that. Hence the book that I'm, at the very tail end of writing, which is Daddy's Girl, From Pain to Peace, because there was a lot of pain in my life growing up, and there is no longer any pain in my life. I have done every growth thing you could possibly imagine. If you looked at my bookshelf, it's everything from self-help to, everything, psychology books. But where I am now is just light years away from that little girl that was hurting so terribly once upon a time. So yeah, that's pretty much where the gist of my story.
Yeah, and I've been to Tony Robbins, the live events 4 times. Twice I've volunteered, like I was a crew. And so I actually crewed the New York one where you would have been. And that one was massive. Like there was people sitting on the floor, like they totally oversold it. And I don't think they expected to have that many people there, but it was an amazing event, right? And there's so much that we can do and really learn from any event that we go to. But I even know for myself, the very first time that I went to Tony Robbins, when I went there, I really didn't know what to expect. And when, 90% or more of the people raised their hands when he was like, "Are you an entrepreneur?" And I was like looking around and I was like, "I used to be, like, do I need to be an entrepreneur to be here? Like, what?" Nobody told me that was in the job description. Like, and
Right.
so the whole entire event, I remember just thinking that I needed to all of a sudden come up with a business plan while I was there because that's what everyone else was doing. But what ended up happening was when I left there, it was kind of like what you shared. It was that I learned how to love myself. And, people have asked me why I go back. I've gone back over and over. And I think for myself, one of the reasons is because every time you go back, you get something different. It's like when we do read a book, there's things that we miss or, courses that we take where it's something that, when we go back, like you said about your story, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's more to this than what I first expected or thought. And so I know when it comes to, that little girl that you were telling, like you were mentioning, I think so many of us have that within ourselves. And I remember doing a meditation with someone one time, and the idea was going back and seeing that little girl. And instead of having her, kicking into you, and that's the reason why, we elicit a lot of the emotions. And when we do act out and we get angry and that kind of thing, I just remember someone like this meditation I did where they actually had her alongside me. And so for me, I always go back to that little girl and hold her hand. And it's like we get to do life together. And so for yourself, when you talk about, because the book is called Daddy's Girl. So what was the journey that got you to where you are today in that regard and deciding to actually go out and write the book and share your story in that degree with the world?
Well, let's see. Again, I said I was arrogant and I kept talking about my story being that little 10-year period that I was with my husband at the time, who was, it's a rabbit hole I won't go down, but it was extremely abusive. And like I said, everything that entails. And I had people talk, it was so bonkers that people would talk about, "You should write a book." Oh my goodness. And yeah, whatever. This is not something I'm ever going to do, I said to myself. But when I came out of Tony Robbins and I realized, because I was calling that my story, I was actually calling the 10-year period of abuse my story. And that's where it became, wait a minute, that's not my story. That's really not my story. How did I get to that 10-year period? Where did that come from? And I started going back and digging. And the Daddy's Girl part is actually an undercover play on words, because a lot of the pain came from my father. I have a sibling. I no longer have a sibling. My sister passed away. But my sister went a completely different route from the abuse, and she went through drugs and alcohol and just killed herself basically through this. And I held on to a lot of guilt because it wasn't me. It happened to her. It didn't happen to me, kind of a thing, because I was actually Daddy's girl.
Oh,
And
okay.
she was. So that's where the name actually came from. And a lot of it plays in because the story about my sister and the guilt that I took on of trying to save my sister because I felt guilty. And I, at one point, took on her two children onto my life and into my lap when they were taken from her. I was actually the one who took them from her physically from the courts. And it just all the different trauma over the years and how my mother stayed with him forever. She was there until the day he died. He died in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just realizing that, wow, that little 10 years was not my story. This is my story. And if I can help anyone read it and not get to that husband or not get to, because we take from our childhood whether we like it or not. I have two kids, and I'm a firm believer that children do not do what they are told, they do what they see.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much I was adamant about not being my mom, I turned out to be my mom anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I found one in the same category. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, how does this work? So that's how the book came about, that this is what I'm going to write. We have even omitted the chapter of the 10 years, and part because I have a daughter. I have full custody of her now, but she's only 14. She's not ready to read that chapter, even though she lived a lot of that chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I have a contract that says I'm not allowed to talk disparagingly. So that's another reason we left out that chapter. And that will be a future book. That will be that little period that I can actually add on to Daddy's Girl at some point. But there was just so much else to say. There was so many other things to say to people that, you know, you don't have to live your childhood trauma every day of your life. You don't have to. It took me a lot of years to figure that out. And if anybody reads it early on, hopefully they will figure out before they get to my age that they can change. They can make changes. They don't childhood, what they call them, curses, family curses. They call them all these different things. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can make changes. I've made changes with my children. I don't parent my children the way I was parented. So I took a lot of good things from that. So the book is not a Debbie Downer. It's not a poor Candice. It's not a pity party. It's inspirational. It's, this is what I did to change things. This is, how I outlook my life now, my outlook on life now. And it's raw. It's real, because I think that people need to hear authenticity. Mm-hmm. So there are some things that I've never shared with the world in this book, about my father and things that actually truly happened. And I feel that if you're not authentic, people can tell. Mm-hmm. So it took almost 2 years to actually write the book because it was emotional. I believe, and the company helping me. First of all, I'm not a writer. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do this? So they have been helping me through every step of the way, and writing an emotional story like that and making sure that we don't get me into trouble by mentioning things that I shouldn't be mentioning, and was difficult. But we are finally getting very close to the end of that editing phase, and it's pretty exciting. I don't know who will read it. I don't know how big and published it'll get, but I'll take it as far as I can get it. I'm planning on mailing it to tons of people, but we'll see what happens with it, and if nothing else, I've gotten more therapy out of writing it, more therapy out of writing it. So.
Yeah. And, I can totally relate to that. And, many of my clients now have written books, and it's, as we go through any of that trauma, it really is like it's like these little stepping stones from our childhood. And all of a sudden we're like, how did I get here? And if you're willing to go back and see the whole process as to how you got here, and not just that, with the women on this podcast, they're entrepreneurs, and so many times the journey that they like what got them to where they are today is actually a huge correlation story because it helps people relate to us. And I even know for myself through all the abuse that I went through in past relationships that when I came out the other side and like you said, looking for that missing piece when my life ended up in a million pieces, I got to put it back together the way I wanted. And there was some pieces that I decided to ditch and I was like, I'm not taking that shit with me. And when I went to Tony Robbins that first time and then learned how to love myself, I know it was, that same sort of thing where you said, you don't know who you're going to help. But I told myself as I started my coaching business that if I could just help one woman go after her dreams, then everything I've ever been through was worth it. Because
Yeah,
I just so badly want women to feel like and know that they're enough, that they don't have to stay a victim, stay within their stories, but they actually can,
exactly.
you've already lived it. So you might as
Yes,
well help the world with it. Right?
yes, yes. And you know what's funny that you say that word victim? Um, my ex used to say to me, "You're just playing victim. She likes to play the victim." And it used to make me really, really angry when he would say that because I thought to myself, I am the victim. Hello. And then later on, looking back, I was only the victim up into a certain point. And then again, like I said, we hold on to that like some kind of crazy security blanket. And for some strange reason, we're so terrified to let it go that
Mm-hmm.
you keep yourself the victim. Like I was in therapy for years. I used to make jokes that I was going to be a lifer. I was just going to keep doing this until I realized that every time I would tell my story and tell my story, I was solidifying it back into me, telling myself I was still a damn victim. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a victim. You're not a victim anymore. I can let that blanket go. And it's women just don't get that part of it. And it breaks my heart because I still see them to this day from time to time, a person. And, they're holding that blanket in front of them, that victim. This is me. And this is what has happened to me. And even with childhood, I was just talking about this with a girlfriend of mine, and this was huge. We were trying to break through because I've already done it. So we were trying to break through her inner child. And you said something a few minutes ago that correlates to this for me, that we sometimes think that the world owes us or our parents owe us what happened to us when we were children. And the fact is they can't give us back 5 years old. They can't
Mm-hmm.
give us back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what we learn to do, if you do it right, is we nurture that child inside of us and give them what they weren't given. It's now our job to do it. And if we
Mm-hmm.
learn to do it, we can actually grow and heal that little broken girl. So
Mm-hmm.
that is profound for me, profound, because I was able to shed all of that guilt and all of those things because my mom and dad, they can't give me back what they didn't do for me or what have you, and I can't be angry because I can only meet my mother still alive, God bless her. I love her, but she can't she can only meet me where she can meet me.
Mm-hmm.
So I meet her there. I meet her there now. My sister's gone and my dad is gone, and my mother is still here, and we have a better relationship due to the fact that I got out of my own way.
Mm-hmm.
you know I stopped holding it against her.
Yeah. And I think it's so amazing for women like ourselves, our generation, how we are making that decision to make a change. I think there's a lot of, women who are older than us, like our parents, who have really struggled to let those things go. And there's so many of us who did experience a lot of trauma as, we've been growing up, and there's so many of us that I've spoke to who have made that decision, like, that will not be my story, and I will not carry that into my children's life. Like, it
Right.
stops with me, right? And, and I mean, this is going to be a controversial topic, But the very first Tony Robbins I went to was in San Jose, and I've been raped twice, and I was kidnapped during one of those times. And Tony Robbins brought up the Me Too movement, and it ended up all over social media, of course, and he was told to apologize. And it was one of those things where someone decided to, pull out their phone and record what he was saying without the actual context of everything we had talked about and what
Right.
got us to that conversation. And I just remember the woman talking about, and her talking about that victim. And as a woman who has been kidnapped and raped, I was so insulted by it, because there's women who have experienced that, like, similar traumas, who maybe felt the same way she did. But for me, it was very different. And so I was almost triggered the other way, because it was like, I'm not a victim. I came here and I learned how to love myself. And that is one of the biggest things. Like, I was able to not only forgive him, but forgive myself for putting myself in that situation. Because at the end of the day, I played a part in it. I played a part in the choices that I made to get to where I was and the woman I was at that point in my journey. And, it allowed me to say, I'm extremely strong for where I've got today. Like you said, I'm not a victim.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a firm believer, and you can always come from a place of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
in a small way or a big way. And if you look at every situation that you come in contact with, no matter whether it's an argument with your husband, or, go from something that small to something as severe, you being able to look at it from a place of yourself will change your entire perspective on life,
Mm-hmm.
because we can always come from a place of ourselves.
Yeah.
And it keeps us from blaming the outside world, regardless of what it is, and that's huge too. That's what I teach my daughter. I taught my son the best that I could those things. This all kind of happened, trickled. He's going to be 23. He's grown, but he lived through my marriage. He did not belong. He was a stepchild. My daughter does belong. Again, I have 2 years custody of her, but I had to teach my son that, and he's still learning a little bit of it. He's still, he's a little struggle bus. He's a combat medic in the Army. Freaking amazing human being, just went through the special forces training. Like, he's amazing, and he helps people for a living. Like what you said, he's a combat medic. But he had to learn that he didn't get there because I was his mother or his dad was his dad. A lot of his pain and the things that he went through during that 10-year period helped get him where he is today.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to thank all of our beautiful things, and we have to thank all of the other things that change us in life, because without controversy, there's no growth.
Mm-hmm.
Without these things happening. And I really, that's another point I'd like to get across to people in this book, that these things, just because they happen to me, doesn't mean that I'm in tears crying over them. I actually am thanking my dad for making me as strong as he did, or this for making my son as strong as it made him. Because I'm not so arrogant to think that my son would be the crazy, Army special forces right now because he's got this really cool mom. No, I didn't do it all. No, 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 no. And I give credit where credit is due, even when it comes to my ex-husband. My ex-husband played a part in that. It wasn't the prettiest part while it was happening, but I know for a fact that he did, because my son is a very determined young man, and he took all of his pain and he turned it into purpose.
Yeah.
Which, again, from pain to peace, I have turned all of my pain into peace and purpose. And now I'm just running with it. I run with my hair on fire, but I'm running with it.
Yeah. And, and I don't want, by especially myself sharing what I did, it's not that we're necessarily ignoring or downplaying someone else's part in it.
Yes.
But it comes a
You're
point
right.
where, that person's not here with me anymore. Like they're not in my life. And so there comes a point where, and I always say it as, instead of saying it in a negative way, it's like, I get to make my own choices today. This is something that I get to do.
Mhm.
And I feel, very empowered for myself. And it's like, we become so proud of ourselves because it is like we make the choices that we have. And today I'm able to say, like, I get to add those things to my toolkit of how I can help someone else. Because, I mean, like I said, we've already lived it. We've already learned through it, and we're continually growing
Yes.
from that. And if I could help other people, get through those moments, that when they're working through their businesses and something comes up, a lot of my clients will reach out to me, and it won't even be based on their business necessarily, but it's like, hey, the shit has hit the fan in my life and I am struggling to move forward
Right.
in my business. And so I know for yourself, before we jumped on, you were talking about your massage business and how it's grown and expanded and how it's really turned into not just yourself and just a spa, but the way that the ladies in there are really healing each other as well. And so I really do think that we attract people like ourselves who we
Thank you.
connect with, right? We said,
Yeah.
like, you are your brand and all that kind of stuff. So
Yes.
um how has that grown and expanded? And would you say that with everything you've been through is really the reason why you started that massage business?
It could very possibly be that. To be honest with you, the name of my spa is Healing Hands.
Hmm.
So it just I wanted to empower the women that came in because we are an all women owned business, but women run. And I did want to get, so I do everything that I do here is to empower them. They get a key to the front door, they get their own business card, they get to run this place as if it were their own. Because my thought process behind that is I'm not dumb when it comes to some things. I've worked a lot of different places. If you don't keep your employees happy, they're not going to produce for you.
Hmm.
So I started with something that simple, but my love for humans in general, attracted some of the most beautiful ladies. One of them the other day was having a moment, and I believe wholeheartedly in the universe. There's probably no one on this planet that could possibly tell me that everything is not happening in the way it's supposed to happen. And I had two books in my car that I never carry in my car.
Hmm.
And she had a moment where she needed to talk, and she was talking to me. And I sat there and I was like, okay. So I have a couple, and I went, oh, they're in my car. They were in my car. One of them is called Safe People, and one of them is called Boundaries. The
Hmm.
Safe People is my Bible because that started me years ago from a therapist. It was one of the first books they gave me, and they were both in my car. And I came back in and I handed her those two books and I said, you go home and read, honey. And that is what this place is about. Like everyone in here, from the way I found all my employees, my manager's been with me from the day one, and I found her by accident through her sister at a smoothie place, just chatting, so we've all just sort of attracted each other. We have a team building exercise coming up where we're all going to sit down together and we're going to do a vision board for the spa from all of us together one night with a glass of bottled wine or what have you. And we're going to make that vision board and it's going to go in the background. It sounds crazy. What does that have to do with a spa? It doesn't, but it's just how everything sort of correlates. I was telling you at one point before we hopped on here that I'm in this Fab 40 thing. Oh my goodness, what is that? It is not about me being fabulous over 40. Actually, I've been, not to go down a rabbit hole because I won't, but I just had my breast implants removed because I was very sick for 3 years. Sick, 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 sick. Cannot possibly explain how sick I was. I took them out. I am better. This was only 2 weeks ago. Every day I get better. My entire staff watched me go through it. They helped me. They did everything they could to keep things running while I was sick or getting surgery or what have you. And the universe handed me that Fab for 40 thing. And it's for breast cancer month as well. It does correlate to breast implants. So I said, heck, I'll run. Why not? So I did, and I'm doing very well in it. And I'm doing it for a cause. I'm actually doing that because the end result is a 2-page spread in New Beauty magazine where I get to talk about breast implants and how it relates to cancer and what happened to me, because that's another journey I'm on. And I get money. And what I'm going to be doing with that is opening a non-for-profit charity for women who can't afford to have them out, who are sick, because I had to pay out of pocket. People can't get better if they don't have the money to get better. So that fell into my lap. So that correlates with everything that's going on. And through that, just so you understand, since this has happened to me, and since I found out a breast implant illness, which was only 2 months ago, I cannot tell you how many women have been inside the shop with either think they might be sick or are sick. And or they are had theirs removed. So we do lymphatic drainage. So again, now we're healing people through this side of my thing. So it just correlates with everything going on right now, which is why I told you earlier there's a second book, because the moment I came out of surgery and I was already able to breathe and I was already feeling better, like I put vulnerable pictures up on my Instagram and my Facebook so people could understand that this really happened to me. I wasn't out there showing the world, but it did. We started the outline. As soon as this Daddy's Girl is done, we're going to be doing one on breast implant illness. This one will come out quicker just because it's not emotional. It is very straightforward and black and white. This is what happened. This is why I got breast all these years ago, for the same husband, by the way, that I went through the horrible time with. You don't alter yourself, women. Don't alter yourself for somebody else's benefit. That's going to be another way for me to give back to the world. So again, as you can see, it's crazy. It all connects together. And, when I saw this, I'm like, yeah, am I making life my bitch? I really am. I really am. At the end of the day, and I'm not arrogant, I'm not narcissistic, but am I? Yeah, I would say I am at this point. I'm raising 2 amazing children. One's a combat medic, and my daughter is in a equine vet program at 14. She's volunteering at the animal clinic over here in West Palm. So yeah, I'm making life my bitch one day at a time. I just got married, like I said, in July to someone I've been with for 8 years, who I like to say I shoved enough sunshine up his butt after Tony Robbins that because he was a little bit of a skeptic when I was there. He was. But the next thing you know, he was opening up a drone business, and now we're on our second drone business. He is, I can't say me. We don't commingle businesses because we're smarter than that as a couple. Not ever a good idea. But he's amazing. And how that turned around was about, I would say 4 or 5 weeks ago. I paid it forward for Tony Robbins. Okay. As he says, pay it forward. So in a roundabout way, paid it forward to my best friend a year ago through somebody who gave her a ticket. God bless her heart. And she went. So this year I got a phone call, I think it's been 2 months now, maybe. And she's like, you want to go again? And I'm like, yeah. So she's like, let's do it. So we got on and we bought tickets, and they were 2 for 1, and you could, buy for more. And my husband came home and I was like, oh, babe, I forgot to tell you, I did something. I'm going back to Tony Robbins in November. And he goes, I want to go. So I got back on the phone and I ordered another ticket, And I paid it forward again with my own money, and I purchased my ticket for my manager, Stacy. So I'm taking her with me. And then I called up a couple other people that I was like, I can't afford 2 more tickets, but you might want to go under me and I can get you 2 for 1. And they're going with us. So it's all about, the secret to living is giving.
Yes.
That's doing. That's what we're doing. And that's where I'm like, that's my purpose right now. No matter which direction I'm going to give it, I'm giving it. That's where I'm at. So yeah, it's a wild ride I'm on. It's like a roller coaster some days, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that's happening. And I get to watch, because over the years I have when I came out of Tony Robbins, it was people are either going to fall off or follow suit. And people fell off and people followed suit. And then I started recognizing what I needed to, like you said, get rid of. So I did. And I started attracting positivity and the same, I wouldn't say the same energy, because if when you come out of Tony Robbins for the first time, you're on crack.
Yeah. You're like on cloud 9 and people are like, who the fuck is this person?
You're telling everybody on the planet that you are writing books and opening businesses. And, at the same time, they're all looking at me going, oh, that's nice, Candice. So how are you going to do all that? And I'm like, I don't know. But 3 years later, they're all going, wow.
How did you do it?
Yeah. And then I'm still looking at them going, I don't know. Someday I don't know why and how and where and what, but it works. And I just keep going and I keep getting up and I keep doing, and I'm bound and determined to win this contest and open this this non-for-profit for women. And I told my husband, the way you're going to give back, because he wants to, is he's a veteran, he's a Marine. And I said, we're going to take, those from your business, and we're going to open up a non-for-profit home for homeless veterans. So I'm like, we are just pushing this forward as far as the train will take us, and whoever's on that ride with us, it's amazing. And we've got a lot of really great people around me. I've attracted some really beautiful women. And I can tell you, once upon a time, I kind of shied away from women. Like a woman that went through high school, they all know that girls can be mean. Like they can
kind of.
there's some mean girls out there, So I used to kind of like, I had 1 or 2, but I never really realized that me staying shy like that was leaving out a lot of the beautiful people in the world. So now I have a circle of women that, oh my goodness, like I'm blessed every single day for each and every one of them. We hashtag that little red circle on a daily basis all over social media. They're beautiful. There's 20, 30 of them that I would have never thought I would have that many such great human beings that were female, not to put females down, but again, females can be feisty, so yeah, I have this amazing network of ladies that are out there killing it. They're out there, my girlfriend that I just mentioned, a shout out to Heather. Heather has got her podcast that we were just on, and it's called The Man Fixer. It's a play on words. She's not trying to fix men. She also did a life coaching. She is actually who paid for my first ticket to Tony Robbins.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. So she's out there doing her thing. I've got this beautiful woman, Kelly Jackson, she's out there trying to kill it in the real estate world, so we all just nurses. There's just a ton of people in my life that I'm just so incredibly grateful for. Shedding all of that dead weight has brought me so many gifts in the world. My dearest friend Jessica, who went through massage school with me, she actually works for me part-time. She does some of the work for me. She's amazing. But she's a registered nurse and she's back in school for her master's degree. She came out of Tony Robbins last year. She went alone. I did not go with her. And she came out, what in the world? Because she couldn't understand me when I came out.
Yeah.
She was just like, oh Lord, have mercy. She's crazy. And then when she went, she got out, she was like, I get it. I get it now. So she's part of that network, and we just keep, and now her and I and my husband and all these people are going to go in 6 days. I think it's 6 or 7 days from now. He's right down the street from my house. So we're going to stay at home and we're going to immerse ourselves for another 57 hours, because I know that feeling that I got when I got there the first time, and I'll get something new. I got some more things to come to the table, because, he says you can, at UPW, he works on 3 things. Well, we all have way more than 3 things. I conquered things. So I'm taking back some other things that I need to continue to work on. And eventually, in hopes, well, that I'll get to Date with Destiny is going to be on my plate for maybe next year.
But, with Tony Robbins, like you said, everyone comes out of there and all of a sudden they have all these ideas of like potentiality, and people are like, how are you going to do it? And it's like you said, it's like that 5th dimension aspect of, manifestation, where it's like, I have no fucking idea. I just know that anything is possible. Are you ready to dive deeper into understanding the 5th dimension, how to quantum leap, and how to utilize the compound effect? These concepts are super trendy right now, but as someone who has experienced trauma and may still like a little bit of control, trusting blindly can be very difficult for me until I understood how it all works. Even I didn't know how I manifested my dream vehicle, home, man, my baby girl, and hitting 6 figures, but now I do. Every program I have ever taken on manifestation told me to feel energy and trust. I tried everything from being positive, gratitude lists, connecting with crystals, clearing my chakras, and following the moon cycles. I needed more than just to trust. I needed to know how and why. This is your warning sign, though, that once you do learn this, you'll never look at energy and manifestation the same again. Dimensions is a 3-day intensive where you will become equipped with the manifestation sequence. We will deep dive into how it works, how to stay in the vibe, and manifest your dream life, all for only $333. Join now by heading to the description for the link. I remember when I first came out, I also purchased a ticket for a woman, and then I bought my brother a ticket, and he ended up at that point, he wasn't ready for it, and he's like, that's a cult.
Well, I get him, because on the way out to the Walk of Fire, I kind of thought I might have joined a cult, so I completely understand where your brother's coming from. Yes.
And that was 4 years ago now, but growing up in a home where my mom, she's like, I think the Gen X, I don't think she's quite a baby boomer, but, has that idea of working the 9 to 5, you have the pension, you have the benefits, and you can start living once you retire. And for me, because by trade, I'm an X-ray tech, when I started there and they're like, oh, do you want to be included in our retirement plan? I was like, fuck no, I'm not going to be here that long. That sounds like a terrible idea. And my little brother, over the years, like in the last 4 years, since I first talked to him about Tony Robbins, he's seen my own transformation. And, I put that bug in his ear all the time where I'm just like, buddy, like, anything is possible for you. There's going to be people who tell you have to work the 9 to 5 and all that. And finally, last year, I said to him, like, he was still living at home with my mom, and he's 8 years younger than me. But I said to him, like, you can't let other people hold you back. And other people aren't always going to support your beliefs or, the drive that you have. They're not going to see the vision. Right. And I said to him, like, it's just that belief that, like, sometimes we have to only believe in ourselves, as hard as it is, and I said, like, what do you want to do? And he said, well, I want to go to school for like some he's doing some video thing. And he's like, I want to go to college. It's a 2-year thing. And I'm like, go do it. I said, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like if it isn't for you, I said, it's something that you have in your toolkit. Like, I'm still paying off my student loan debt, and like, I don't even work in the hospital anymore.
Right.
And it's like, but that's okay, because it was through working at the hospital that I saw all these people coming in who were stressed out. And I thought to myself, like, if I could help someone before they got to the hospital, get to help them like go after their dreams before they experience all this stress and end up in the hospital, then, this was all worth it. And, with you sharing about the breast implants, it's amazing how many women that I've actually heard share about that,
Yeah.
and having issues with them, having to get them taken out. And I really liked what you said about not changing ourselves, because, even with my daughter, she's 3 months old, and every morning, I say to her, like, good morning, beautiful. And she, like, this morning, she just like biggest smile on her face. She's like still
Oh,
stretching, and she's like doing her
yeah.
little baby stretch. And it's like,
I,
she looks at me and like that big smile. And it's, it's so early on, like we get to, tell people that they're beautiful. Like there's
yes.
one of the biggest things I've learned is that when someone gives me a compliment, and I think I talked about this on the boomerang effect episode, the abundance and manifestation explained.
Right.
It's that idea that when someone gives you a compliment, especially as women, learning to accept it, and not accept it, and for like not even allowing ourselves to feel it, we just boomerang it back out to someone, being like, where they're like, oh, I really like your hair today. And we don't even like allow it to like hit, our bodies and to feel it before we're like, oh, and I love your shoes, or like, and I love your
Exactly.
shirt.
Yes, it's very, very true. Absolutely. Speaking of, little babies, like saying that to your child is so important. But my girlfriend, Jessica, the one that I sent last year, she has just decided she's not too much younger. She's younger than me, but she's still, older. Her son is now, oh, good grief, like 21.
Mhm.
And she just had a baby. She's 2,
Mhm.
and she is teaching her to say, I'm beautiful, I'm smart. And she will say that back to you. She'll look in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful, I'm smart. And if people could just that's it. You just teach this, and keep teaching this,
Mhm.
because she has that chance now to nurture this little child, and it's the cutest thing in the world. So when your baby gets to be that age, she'll start telling you, I'm beautiful and I'm smart, because
Mhm.
she will know it. And it's going to be the most incredible feeling. She's my goddaughter, but to hear her say those words, it's just incredible. My daughter went through a lot with the divorce, with having custody. He had part custody of her for many years. And to say the least, she was a means to hurt me. So she went through her own set of abuse until I was able to. I fought for all these years. And 19 months ago, I received full custody of her, and she's thriving. She's thriving. Um, but she doesn't think she's beautiful some days. So I'm having that struggle bus with having to teach her at this age, no matter what I told her when she was little, it was ripped from her, inside and out. And, but every day we work on it,
Mhm.
and she's in therapy. She's been in therapy. We got her started with horses. So she has horse therapy. She actually rides them, but that's therapy. She plays volleyball now, and she's kind of starting to like herself. She's becoming tone, and she's a freshman in high school, and that's always tough. But
Mhm.
but yeah, it's complimenting and telling them, and it's just perfect strangers. I love it. The first thing I do, I'm standing in line at Walmart or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, I love your shoes. Like, where'd you get your shoes? I'm big. I talk a lot. I got a big mouth. So
Me
I
too.
try to to put it to good use, because that was, again, the thing. I was with this Fab for 40. I literally put up all of my vulnerable pictures because I wanted everybody to know that I wasn't running because I think I'm beautiful and fabulous over 40.
But why not?
I'm like, yes, why not? But at the end of the day, there really was a story behind it. So that's why I did it. But yeah, I think it's really important to put it out in the world, because it really does come back full effect. Just getting somebody, even if they're not comfortable and complimenting you back, the smile that comes from someone that you just complimented, because some people don't feel comfortable, and it's sad because that's some kind of something that happened along the way where they don't receive compliments well. So you can see it on their face, but yet they still smile. And that smile gives me so much, I take from that. I take that little bit of something, and it's good for me. It's good for them. It was good for me. And it was wonderful, a wonderful little exchange, So yeah, it definitely always has a boomerang effect, whether it's the smile or the compliment. I completely agree.
Yeah. And, with that whole thing too, I really do think, well, every single person out there has something that they're insecure about, right? And, I remember one of my coaches saying it, Melanie Ann Lair. And I mean, I don't know if she's the one who came up with it, but it's that idea that like hurt people, or sometimes hurt people change the world. And I really think, with this podcast, I always say like, I'm helping women like share a message so powerful that they can change the world. And sometimes it is just the little things of being out in public, and maybe your message is just to compliment someone. And in that moment, they might not receive it. But when they get into their vehicle, it's that question of like looking at themselves in the mirror, and they're like, oh, maybe I do have like, I am beautiful. Maybe I do have nice eyes, like that person said, or a nice smile, or beautiful energy, or nice shoes, right?
Yeah.
And in the moment, they might not know how to receive it, but it's there. It's in the back of their mind. And, what's the reason why they can't, accept a compliment? Could it be something as simple as maybe she was a little girl growing up who believed she was beautiful. She had a mom who told her she was, and all of a sudden the hurt people,
Yeah.
was someone who started to tell her, no, you're not. And so there's times that we believe that about ourselves, but then someone else starts to like puts it in your mind that you should question it.
Yeah.
And, we get to help them question it the other way. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's so important for us as well, is that we do allow that to plant the seed, because, my boyfriend and I are like, we're both very stubborn, as a lot of people like to say about us. And so I catch a lot of people telling my daughter like, oh, she's stubborn, just like, if they know me really well, or if they know him really well. And I'm like, no, she's just strong.
Yeah, she is. She's just strong. Yes, that's beautiful. Because yeah, the more you say that, the more I remember people saying, things like that as my children were growing up. My daughter was a little bit of a diva. She's more of a tomboy now, but she was a little bit of a diva when she was little, or she was sassy or something. And I think I remember I could go back with my son as well, where people hurt people because they would actually, well, she's just like this or he's just like that. No, not really. They're both two very strong human beings. And yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful way to put it. Is no, she's just strong. I think that's amazing.
And I think people don't even realize she's ugly.
It's true. Words matter. Words matter so much. And I tell my child this all the time. I with my daughter, there's a lot of like, is this your only child?
Yes.
Okay, so you're very new. And I can't say that it doesn't get harder. It gets better.
Older. So yeah, my first of my own.
with my daughter, it being a teenager, I'm trying to teach her all these different levels of things because I really do want her to understand at an early age that the things that it took me to my 40s to figure out, and words matter. Words matter. I have some of the girls at my spa. I have one in particular who she thinks she jokes, but every single time I'm like, stop that. Cause she will literally go, if she doesn't get something right, she'll go, oh, I'm retarded. You are not. I used to call myself that when I would make something dumb would happen or whatever. I have said that to myself. I have, unknowingly put these things back into my own body just as well as putting it into another human being. We don't realize what goes into our brains and sticks. We're sponges. We're complete sponges, and subconsciously, yep, absolutely. I tell them all the time, it's inner talk, it's outer talk. It's, yeah, don't say that. If she's perfect and you think she's perfect, tell her she's perfect. Tell her she's beautiful then. But no, I don't think there are a lot of people out there that do not recognize what they do. They haven't been down a path of growth or gone down rabbit holes and figured out, your psychology and God only knows what else, meditation. And, I have a burn bowl. Where I burn all the time. My girlfriend taught me how to burn. I'm like, I have people that look at me like I'm bonkers. I remember the first time my husband, who was not my husband at the time, found me. I was really going through it. And I couldn't get out of my head. There were a lot of things going on because it still happens. I might be totally optimistic and running through the world with this reckless optimism, I say, but I have moments. And I went out to the yard and it was like midnight. And I just sat out real quietly. We live in almost 2 acres of land. And I had my bowl and I was just writing stuff down. I was dropping it in the bowl and I was burning it. And I heard something from behind me. And God bless his heart, he was standing on the porch going, "What are you doing?" "Don't worry, babe. Go back to bed. I'm burning stuff." And he's like, "Oh, okay." He now understands years later what I mean by when I'm going to burn some stuff. But he was just like, "What the hell?" So I get people that look at me like I'm kooky and I don't care. I know it's real. I know that the things that I've manifested have come to fruition. And I understand that what manifesting means, and a lot of people don't understand what manifesting means. So you can manifest into your child thoughts. You can manifest lots of things. I manifested a car, and it didn't mean that I just said I'm going to have this car one day. I put it in my phone. I put it, in places where I could see it, so that it opened my brain up to where my, brain started working on how I was going to get these things done. I put that car in my phone 2 years ago, and that car sits out back right now. For the very first time in my life, I bought my very first brand new car.
Nice.
And yeah, and I just did that. I've had it not even a month and a half. And so people can look at me like I'm kooky and whatever, but no, we need to manifest into people that they are beautiful. Manifest, it works. But it's not going to work if it's bad. It's not nice talk, but each person that we come in contact, hopefully it becomes that domino effect where maybe that person will take it to the next person and the next person. And, it will just float through the world like that. I'm recklessly optimistic, but I'm also realistic. Do I think I'll ever see an entire world change? No, not in my lifetime, not in our lifetime, but whatever piece that we can do while we're here, why wouldn't we be doing it? Why wouldn't we try to pass it on so that, maybe someone will hear this podcast one day and it'll get back to her and she won't make those mistakes anymore, because they are mistakes. They don't know any better. Some people do. There's some ugly people in the world, but for the most part, not really. They're just people who don't know any better. They just don't. They haven't gone through it yet. They They haven't found the growth train, I call it, sometimes, because it's boxes. You know how a train has all different boxes?
Hmm.
They are boxes of each different types of growth because there's a ton of them. So this is a train that runs through the entire world. It's got plenty of it behind you. And I think maybe I've only visited 3. So you never stop learning. You never stop growing. That mindset is amazing. But I go off on tangents a lot. But
But, I really like that train analogy because it's like, I mean, we've shared a bit about it, right? Like how we have all these different situations happen in our life and we think they're in one of those boxes of the train. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's all connected, and it's so funny because one of the big things I always talk to my clients about is the ripple effect, how you're never going to know how many lives you've impacted. Yep. But, by me working with different women, like you said, being on the podcast, by sharing, different stories with people, it creates that ripple effect in the world. And there's going to be people that we touch without even realizing it. And, I like what you were saying about the burn bowl, because with my boyfriend, he used to think, I mean, he still thinks I'm crazy, but, but like I had with every new moon and full moon, I go put water out on the earth, like in a water bottle. And I also put my crystals out there. And in the beginning, he would just be like, you're fucking nuts. And now, now it's so funny because, we were walking, this was this summer, we were walking and I said, I was like, oh, I need to put my crystals out tonight. And he goes, just naturally, like off the top of his head, oh, is it a new moon or a full moon? It's like, it made me laugh.
We bleed on to each other. The 5 most important people you hang out with are the people you turn into. Hence my husband, all of a sudden, I want to go to Tony Robbins. You're like, what? It does. It's a ripple effect. I completely agree with that. It really is. The world is a ripple effect, and you might as well be a good piece of it, rippling through the world. I have learned little tricks that I have heard people say this, and I have seen people post it on social media. For instance, they'll say things like, oh, not everybody's life is so perfect. They're only putting out perfect into the Facebook world. I look at that from a different perspective. If you were to go through, if you haven't already been on my profiles, they are very positive. I don't complain. I don't think for 1 second. I just put out there that I've been sick for 3 years. Okay. My life's not perfect. Am I putting a fake Facebook? No, I'm not. You know what I'm doing? I'm putting positivity out there because I learned through Tony Robbins and through other resources that the algorithm on your Facebook, if you put negativity out there, it's going to hand it right back to you. It's out tenfold.
And on the Joe Rogan podcast, he had Mark Zuckerberg on there. And when there's the mad faces, when people put the mad faces, they actually have it set up that it does not register in the algorithm to boost the post because they only do want positivity.
Yes. And it's crazy. When I learned that, I learned several things, which I'm tempted to not say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because it's just who I am. I learned that. So every time I put positivity out there, it gives me back positive. So in reality, if you look at my Facebook right now, it's like puppies, kittens, and positivity. It's just great. It's fantastic. But on top of that, I started to have people that I was disconnecting from. And when I first started disconnecting, I started unfriending. And I didn't know people would even notice. They noticed. Like, oh, and I'm one of those people where I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, like, what have you. And then one day somebody said to me, you can unfollow people and they don't know, and they don't go off of your Facebook. They just go out of your algorithm. So you can no longer see their negativity or whatever it is, or going on there talking about how, they beat their kids today because they wouldn't shut up for 10 minutes or whatever it was. And I was like, huh. So I went in and I found lots of things to unfollow. So these are the little tricks that I did to keep positive, because I noticed that the moment I see something, I can keep scrolling, because I see very little of it. I'm the kind of person where I'm just going to keep scrolling. I'm not engaging in that, whatever. But now it's like almost nothing. So people are like, I hate Facebook. It's nothing but, not mine. I'm good.
Yeah.
They're just little tricks that I learned along the way. I love these people. Some of those people I unfollowed are people that would be surprised. They might even be a family member. But at the same time, I love you, but I have to love you from a distance, because I can't, be negative. I can't live in a negative world. If I lived in a negative world that I lived in once upon a time, I wouldn't be able to run the things that I'm running now. The household that I'm running, my daughter and my spa and the 13 beautiful women that work for me, and I don't even think they work for me. Honestly, they work with me. This might be my place, but they work with me because when they're here, they could tell you that I'm folding sheets. I'm doing the same things they're doing. I'm doing the best I can to help them when they need their bed made. I'm in here doing it. So they work with me, so, you just got to empower everyone that you come into, no matter how you do it, whether it's as small as telling them they're beautiful, or if it's as big as handing them 2 books to go read, because you realize you need these more than I do right now. I don't need these anymore, and I've handed it off. And the cool thing about that book, there's a few people, if they listen to this, they'll know right away that book, because that particular book has gone to more than a half a dozen women. It's the same book. It's been mailed to New York and mailed back to me when they were done. It's old and you can see some of the writings in it. So when I handed it to her, I'm like, you can keep the boundary book, but the Safe People has to come back, because I have to be able to keep passing that around. Because if I look back at it, the last person who touched it, it took her 2 years, but she has finally come to the other side. And if she listens today, she'll know who she is. Because she is on the other side of it now. And I mailed that book to her and she mailed it back. So there's a lot of good juju on that book, so pay it forward for sure.
And it really is, like you shared, like the energetics of it. And, those people that we surround ourselves with, one of the things I was thinking about, especially like with our children, or people who do believe that they're beautiful, because, with the sassy piece or whatever, like some people are like, yeah, that is who I am, and there's going to be people, even though we tell our kids these things, that they're going to plant the seed of, you're just being, vain or whatever. But like you said, like these people just don't know better. And it's being able to, stand with people who are going to help you rise in those moments that someone does come up and tell you, hey, you're not enough. And, I like when you were sharing just that energetic of putting it out there and it coming back, or also your pieces around manifestation, right? Manifestation really is, where we decide that we want something, we put it out there. And as long as we are focused on, the belief, and it's the aligned action towards those things. And so, you were sharing that you're going to do a like spa, like vision board. And one of the things that I see so many people do with vision boards is they'll do it and then they never look at it. It was like just a thing on their to-do list. And it's like, the reason that we do any sort of visualization, meditation, manifestation is so that you can start training your body to feel it and to feel that energy as if it's already happened. Like, how would I feel when this comes in? And being able to close your eyes and, be like, oh, it's already mine. And then we make the aligned moves, right?
Right. No, absolutely. With the vision board, um, it started a few years ago for me because I learned about vision boards,
Hmm.
and I immediately went straight to my daughter,
Hmm.
and two of them, we made them together, and hers is still in her room. It sits right on her desk where she is forced to see it every day that she sits down to do her homework. And I wish I had a photograph for you. There's words on it that say strong. There are words, they're just different things on that board that I look at her now and I'm like, those all came to fruition. There was a piece where she wanted to get into this equine program, because it was not easy to get into. And she's there. She's doing it. It's on that board. And I remind her all the time, I'm like, it's on that board. When we write things down, we solidify it to paper, just like Tony says, to beat a dead horse, Tony Robbins. I went out earlier and I grabbed this. There's this little book right here. Don't be a lady, be a legend.
Hmm.
My friend Heather, the one who bought my ticket to Tony Robbins, she gave me this book. I want to say, probably about 3 or 4 months before we went. I'm a big proponent of saying, first of all, she called me one day. I'll give you an example. And I was on the 95 in the car, and she's like, "You want to go to Tony Robbins?" Sure. I'm a big proponent of sure. And then what are we doing? I say yes before anything. I'm like, what is it we're doing again? Yeah. So I'm a big proponent of that. I don't care what let's do it. I'm there. I'm in. So she did, and she gave me this book, and I started writing in it after, Tony Robbins. Okay, because Tony Robbins was the 11th. Actually, I started writing on it, as you can see. I know they can't see, but it says November 13th. And
2019.
yep, this was, we started the Tony Robbins on November 11th. So I was still in the seminar. Okay. And I started putting things back in this book. I opened it, but when you automatically open up to a notebook, we automatically open up to the empty pages,
Hmm.
and we writing again. Well, I was having my coffee and the book accidentally opened to the first page. And about a week ago, and I was looking at it and I was like, oh my God, look, November. And I started nostalgia, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, November 13th. No, look at all these things. There's Daddy's Girl from Pain to Peace. There's my spa. And then I'm going, oh my God, I did all of these things. And I started looking at it. There's only one thing in this book that I have not done yet, but it was more like a 5 year. It's been 3 years because I knew it wouldn't come right away. There's things when you manifest, you have to put those building blocks. And the one thing in this book that I did not accomplish, I have not accomplished yet, is I want to open a home for abused women. My thought process was behind it was basically, abused women, a detox facility. Like, my mind was all over the place because my sister died. She was abused. My sister died of drugs. So I wasn't really sure how that was going to correlate or where that was going to come in, but it's still in here. It's still in here, and it's not done yet because that was more like the 5 years. Because how do you do that without a business or money or funds or whatever? So I realized, I'm like, I'm almost there. I'm almost to that piece of my book. So that's a big part of manifesting, is putting it down and looking at it and solidifying it to paper,
Hmm.
and putting it in your phone, a picture in your phone, or some people like to put things on their refrigerator door because they're forced to see it every single day. My husband and I were driving down to Fort Lauderdale the other day on Sunday, and a Ferrari went by. Now, granted, we're in a great place right now. We're revamping another new company, and he could do lots of things, but he's like, "Oh, that's the car I want," and he was just kind of like, because he's a car guy and a motorcycle guy. So I looked at him and I said, "Well, why don't we take a picture of it and put it on our refrigerator?" And he looked at me, he's like, "What?" I was like, "Why not? You look at that car every single solitary day. I guarantee you of all people will have that car one day, and one
Hmm.
day." because that's manifesting, and that's vision boards. And yeah, I think I came up with it. I don't know how. I think somebody gave me the idea, and then I branched out on that vision board going, my girls, somebody, I don't know who, said it's a great team building exercise. And I was like, I have a team. Ooh, I'm going to take that team and we're going to come here and we're going to drink some wine. We're going to have a great time, build this great vision board, and we're going to put it in the back of the spa where they are forced to look at it every time they come in, which it goes back to, how do I empower these women? Where does that come from? And the family that we've become. So yeah, it's actually, they don't quite know it yet, but we're going to do a vision board night. We've done a couple of things where we've gone out and I've treated them to, well, I didn't even end up treating them. Somebody else paid, but there was a dinner that we had with all of them, getting to know each other. And I do these things periodically because I want them to love each other while they're in here, because how many times do people work at jobs where there's like 4 people that they do this, they can't, oh my God, the energy. We don't have that here. And all of our clients feel it when they come through the door. If you go on Google, we have almost 90 in 1 year, 95-star reviews. We are 5 stars across the board. And if you read them, they will all tell you the amazing atmosphere inside that place. I tell these girls every day, I did not do this alone. You did this. Those people, they come for you. They love you. They love your energy, what you do for them. So that's how, they're paying it forward and learning some of the things that they didn't know existed. Some of them didn't know about Tony Robbins or how this, but as they've learned me over the year, they've learned, wow, this is really cool. They didn't just walk into a job where this woman who's had a bank account her whole life opened up. I started this with $0. I didn't even know what I was going to do. We made it work, so they get empowered from that. And it's an incredible feeling. It's an incredible feeling, and it's not narcissistic. It's not ego driven. It's just, it's my whole heart is what it's my whole heart. People will tell me, God, this place is so beautiful. I took advantage of COVID. I mean, you want to talk about people looking at you like you're crazy? My husband and I both opened these companies during COVID. I opened a business that I touch people during COVID. I can't tell you how many people looked at me like, what are you thinking? And I told them, when COVID goes away, because it will, people are going to need to be touched more than ever before. And I was right. And they come here by the handfuls, and my husband's business was more essential. They call it essential, because he did drones and one of his big contracts is FPL. So he was more of an essential. And I really got annoyed with that essential thing. I'm essential. Everybody's essential. We're all essential. Okay, stop talking about essential. Okay, because people are putting that out in the world, to where I hear on the radio now, because I know we don't have much longer, but they're actually advertising college for essential careers. And I'm like, wait, what? No. I'm essential. Your podcast is essential. This is just, but they're manifesting that into children now. They're teaching,
for sure. There's so many subliminal messages.
Don't you tell my child that she has to go get something essential. She's going to do what she's going to do no matter what. And it's going to be essential to the world in some way, shape, or form. It's that simple, but yeah, it's manifesting is huge.
Well, and within Canada, with their essential things that they were doing, it was like everything was essential. They like, not where the province that I'm in, but I know in Ontario, they were literally blocking parts off in Walmart, being like, you can't buy these things at Walmart because they're not considered essential. And so there was people who couldn't even like get towels or anything like that. And then here where I am, it's like the liquor store was considered essential. And then
Oh,
they went through, well, if you're vaccinated, then you can go into the liquor store. So it was only essential for the people who were vaccinated and not the people who weren't.
oh,
And
gracious.
so it was just like crazy. And I was at a comedian last night, and he was talking about how the Toronto Star literally had in their paper how the people who lived alone, if they're struggling with that human contact or people touching them, they said to hold your hands on your body as if you're hugging yourself, to lay on the floor and rock yourself back and forth, because then it will feel like a hug. And the comedian said, so you're literally telling these people to do the same thing as if they were caught on fire because of the stop, drop, and roll. And like, oh my
Oh,
God, I just burst out laughing. And I
that's
was like,
that's crazy.
yeah. And so, like you said, with the essential stuff, it is, everyone has all these different ideas. And you made the comment about realistic earlier. And that's one of the biggest things I always say to my clients anytime someone says the word realistic, I always ask the question of realistic for who? Because someone who's living on the streets, someone like myself, or someone who's a billionaire, we have all different like
Yeah.
ideas of what our reality is.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so,
I would have to agree with that. I've never looked at it that it's from that perspective, but when I speak of realistic, it's realistic for where I'm at. You
mhm,
know, when my doctor looked at me and said to me, I can't tell you you have breast implants. Illness. And I said, no, I'm realistic. I get it. That was my reality. I do understand that it's not technically recognized by the FDA,
mhm,
but I was okay with it, so yeah, it was coming from my perspective, so yeah, everybody sees through their own filter. you
mhm,
know they literally, you can have three people in the room and they're all watching the same exact seminar and they're all three getting some completely different message. I see it
mhm,
on Facebook sometimes where it's hard, it's very, very, very difficult to take something negative from my page.
mhm.
It is so incredibly ridiculously optimistic and fluffy that, but every once in a while I will still see somebody come from their reality and they will hit it and read and I go, where did they get that from? That's been realistically for them, that meant something completely different. So yeah, I would have to agree. Each person has their own realistic vision or version of
Mhm.
things.
Yeah,
But
and I
yeah,
mean, even when I first launched my podcast, and I said that the name was Make Life Your Bitch, like, yeah, I had a couple women like get angry about and unfriend me because they're like, "Ugh, what does that even mean?" And it's like we're not for everyone. And the other thing I've really learned is that my my beliefs are not usually they didn't usually come from me. It's somebody else said something in order for that belief to become my own. And it also gives me that opportunity when I think of it that way, that I can release that belief because it's not my own. And when I think of it that way, like on my Facebook with my bio, it says, with the women that I help, it's breaking through their own glass ceiling. It's
yeah,
not the glass ceiling or someone
yeah,
else's glass ceiling. It's like your own, because each one of us is different. And
yep,
I always say, like, and I put my hands on my head and I'm like, this belief, this belief, this belief, like, as like, if you move your hands away and you remove those beliefs, it's like you look up at the sky and like beyond, and like anything becomes
yeah.
possible for you.
Yes, the limiting beliefs are just crazy. I didn't a little tiny tidbit on my limiting belief of it. One of the many that I didn't realize until after I came home and was home for about a week after Tony Robbins. I realized I had one of the most dangerous limiting beliefs, in my opinion and in my
Mhm.
reality, because as a child, my mother would say something, and I know that my mother did not mean any harm by it, and she did not mean what it sounded like to me. but she would say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, when, where, or who, but I used to get, ooh, gross. I didn't like that saying. It sounded like you were taking from somebody else. Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why that got stuck in my head, but it did for years. And when I got out and I started thinking, because you settle down, the crap wears off after we get, you start to melt into the world again, and you start to, become, I don't want to say normal because I'm never normal, but you start to level out. I thought about that for a minute, and I said to myself, I'm like, Tony said to put yourself in the right room. It means
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. It means the same thing that my mother said. But you know how many missed opportunities I must have had thinking that that was wrong? It was a limiting belief, and it was like, wow, that's incredible. So the one that was the other one that was the most dangerous was, I would say to myself, and I remember saying these a lot of times during my marriage, if I did something wrong or something was, what's wrong with you? This was
Mm-hmm.
said to me as a child. What's wrong with you? And I said that to myself as an adult. I would say, God, Candice, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You can put that on everything. You can put that, what is wrong with you, on your relationship. You can put that on, how you cooked your dinner, how you got to the grocery store, whether or not you walk down the street today. That fits every single thing in your life. And I said that to myself. That was a limiting belief because it made me think there was something wrong with me. Again, it goes back to words matter, and limiting beliefs and how people see things and the different filters. And I just want to get that across to as many people as I can, that the world doesn't have to look as crummy as it does through some of the filters they're looking for. They need to just kind of pull those off and see it from new perspectives. And life gets better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling everybody go out and open up a spa, go out and write books, go out and, kick breast implant illness and join contests, but in their own reality, do their own thing, whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, the same thing goes for the question that you could ask yourself is like, what's good with you? You know?
Absolutely. What is good? And you know what? I actually, going back a little bit, right before Tony Robbins in August, I went to Tony Robbins in November. Happenstance. There's a Facebook group that we're in. It's called it's a gratitude group, and it's grateful. And this person I did not know, my dear friend Melanie, who passed away in April of last year. She came to me one day on a bike ride, and she's like, my girlfriend opened this page, and do you want to join it with me? And I'm like, sure. Again, sure. What are we doing? And she's like, okay, I'll add you. And she added me. This was 3 years ago. And I write my gratitude on that page. That page is it's a private group because people can be, ugly. But
Mm-hmm.
we've added over the years, I've added certain people, and I've watched them start writing their gratitude. So it's what is good about me? What is good
Mm-hmm.
about my day? What happened today? What makes me special? Gratitude. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my voice, or I'm grateful for this. And I've been writing in that group damn near daily for 3 years. And so have hundreds of other people. And it's so amazing. It's one of the first things I do when I open up my phone in the morning. I go straight to the gratitude page. I have
Mm-hmm.
my coffee. I write my gratitude, and it can be, the smallest thing to the biggest thing, or something that happened, or somebody did something, or someone I'm grateful for. But it is what is good about me? What is good? What am I doing that's good? So it's about looking inside of what you're grateful for. What are you doing that you can be grateful for? Absolutely. You can ask yourself that. That's a great question. I
Mhm.
did not do that for a lot of years. And I would say with the gratitude that that's kind of where that changed, maybe a
Mhm.
little before Tony, that I stopped saying, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with me. I mean, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with, anybody who makes mistakes in life. As long as you're writing your mistake, your mistakes, you're changing your behavior and you're out there doing the best that you can to change, even if you're not accomplishing it, God bless you. There's nothing wrong
Mhm.
with you. Nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
So, this is what I want for my story to tell
Yeah.
to whoever it gets to.
That's amazing. And so with all of your positivity and, people obviously need your page, how can people find you?
Okay, so on Instagram, I am under C Provenzano, at C Provenzano. That is my personal Instagram page, which is also my personal positivity story in
Mhm.
photographs. They can find me on Instagram at Healing Hands um, with an underscore MSTC, which they can find me there. They can find me on Facebook as Candice Provenzano. I also have, they could, once they find me to the main ones, I can hook them up with the other ones if they so want to. But the two main places to find me are Instagram, C Provenzano, and then Facebook, Candice Provenzano. And I have also, through my journey, after my marriage ended, I hid from the world. I hid what I did on Facebook. I was scared of, repercussions. And when I finally opened up, every single solitary page I own is public.
Mhm.
Everything I put out there is public. There is nothing I hide. I have nothing to hide. So they're easy to find because they are all public.
Mhm.
So that's where they can find me. My website also for Healing Hands is healinghandswellington.com, which takes you to my spa, which again, if you're not in Wellington, Florida, to visit my spa, we do have products. I'm a representative of Jan Marini, who's been in business for 30 plus years. She's an amazing product. You can get my link right on my website and buy the products I've been using for years. She's wonderful. They fix so many things. It's a medical grade product, so they could do that if they like.
Mhm.
And yeah, and hopefully soon there'll be a link up where they can find my books.
That's
That's
awesome.
where that'll be next.
That's amazing. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. And for those of you listening, go out there and make life your bitch.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Make Life Your Bitch podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please share it with your bestie. And if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player. If you have any questions, feedback, or compliments that you want to throw like confetti, you can reach me directly at podcast@makelifeyourbitch.co. Thanks for listening.